All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really complex topic, a shadow war. But this isn't a war fought on some distant border. The battleground here is the very fabric of a nation. We're going to explore how one single military action, Operation Sindoor, allegedly sparked this dramatic shift away from open conflict and towards a much murkier strategy of internal subversion.
Okay, let's just pause on this quote for a second because it really is the key to understanding everything else. What on earth is an asymmetric bet? Well, think of it like this. It's a high-risk but potentially high-reward strategy. You use unconventional, cheaper methods to go up against a much stronger opponent. And in this case, the alleged bet is that if you can reignite an old separatist movement, you might just be able to fracture Indian society from the inside out. So how did we get here? Where did this new doctrine come from? It all traces back to one single pivotal military operation, an operation that didn't just end on the battlefield. It completely rewrote the rules of engagement for the entire region. And that operation was called Sindoor. This thing was an absolute game changer. For one, it basically called Pakistan's nuclear bluff. It showed that conventional military action was in fact possible without things escalating to a nuclear level. And that put Pakistan under some really intense international heat. Not just from the US and the EU, but from organizations like the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. They're basically the world's watchdog for terror financing. And this right here, this chart just lays out the change perfectly. The old policy was all about strategic restraint, a more reactive posture. But that was replaced with what's called the new normal. So what does that mean? It means a promise of swift, decisive, and really high-cost retaliation to any threat. It's a move from a purely defensive stance to a proactive one. And you have to understand, this isn't just a small military tweak. It's a whole new psychological posture for the region.
So, if you're Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, and you're suddenly facing the threat of another direct and very costly conflict, what do? Well, the argument is that they had to pivot. If a conventional war was now off the table, the new strategy was to take the fight inside India's own borders.
Which brings us to the crucial question, right? What does this new kind of shadow war actually look like on the ground? If it's not about tanks and soldiers crossing a border, then what are the weapons and where is the battlefield?
And this is where the whole shadow war idea really takes shape. Just look at these tactics. This isn't about armies. It's all about deniability and creating chaos. The whole point is to make the conflict untraceable. You recruit locals, you use other countries as transit points, and you basically pour gasoline on any existing social fires you can find. It's a strategy designed to destabilize from within, making it almost impossible to prove who's really pulling the strings.
And the main weapon, the primary tool for this alleged strategy, is the revival of a dormant and frankly dangerous separatist movement. The goal here isn't just to cause a little chaos, it's to attack the very idea of a unified Indian society by reigniting that old call for Khalistan.
And the strategy to do this is really multifaceted. It allegedly involves using a religious corridor, which was created for peace, mind you, as a channel for propaganda. It involves funding these operations through drug trafficking, which has the nasty double effect of both paying for the mission and corroding the local society. And it even extends abroad, backing groups like Sikhs for Justice, or SFJ, to lobby against India in Western countries like Canada and the USA.
Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit and focus on the main organization allegedly chosen to carry out this mission, Babbar Khalsa International, also known as BKI. This table gives you a quick snapshot. Now, BKI is not some new player on the scene. They were founded way back in the late 70s. And their history is violent, to say the least, marked by the horrific 1985 Air India bombing, which is still one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in aviation history. And because of that, it's internationally recognized as a terrorist organization.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, but their power has waned since the 80s and 90s. And that's true, but they are still active. And here's the crucial part. Its leadership, including its chief Waraha Singh Babbar, is reportedly based in Pakistan. The allegation is that they operate with state support and leverage a global network in Western countries to keep going. So we've talked a lot about high-level strategy, but how does this actually translate into real-world events? Because it's not just theory, right? It has tangible, dangerous consequences on the ground. Let's take a look at a very recent incident in Punjab. And there it is. This is that strategy in action. Right here in Ludhiana,
police intercepted 2 alleged terrorists who were directly linked to BKI. And according to authorities, this wasn't some random act. This was a planned attack, guided by handlers who were based in Pakistan.
And the way this whole operation unfolded was like something from a counter-terror textbook. First, and most importantly, it started with good intelligence that came from a previously dismantled module. So you see how one success can lead to another. That intel led police to these new operatives whose mission was simple and violent: deploy grenades. But the police action worked, and they neutralized the threat before it could be carried out.
The evidence recovered tells a very clear story. You've got pistols and grenades. It's pretty obvious this was meant to be a mission of violence and terror. And that detail, the Chinese-made grenades, that's not just a random fact. For investigators, that's a clue about the supply chains and the external support that fuels these kinds of plots. And it aligns with that whole broader strategy of destabilizing from within. So, all of this leaves us with a final, really critical thought. When a conflict moves away from clear battlefields and into the shadows, when it's fought with propaganda, with proxies, by exploiting social divisions, how do we even begin to measure the true cost? It's not just about the attacks that are averted. It's about the slow, long-term erosion of trust within communities, the diplomatic fallout between nations, and the quiet poisoning of social cohesion itself.